Imagine a crisp golden morning in the American Southwest during the 1920s. A group of soldiers, proud members of the 45th Infantry Division, nicknamed the Skybirds, don their uniforms with a sense of identity that transcended mere military affiliation. On their shoulders sat a symbol that had been stitched into the cultural fabric of the Americas for over 1,000 years, the swastika. To the Navajo, Hopi, and other indigenous tribes of the region, this was not a mark of hatred. It was the sign of the four directions, a sacred emblem representing life, luck, and the sun's eternal movement. When the 45th was formed, drawing many of its ranks from the National Guard units of Oklahoma, Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico, they adopted this indigenous heritage with deep reverence. It was a bridge between the martial pride of the modern soldier and the spiritual legacy of the First Nations. For years, the symbol sat innocently on their shoulders, a badge of regional pride that had no connection to the darkness brewing across the Atlantic. It was a mark of solidarity, a connection to the dusty plains and the sacred traditions of the people who had inhabited the land long before the states were even drawn on a map. As the calendar pages turned toward the late 1930s, the world began to fracture. A sinister regime in Germany, led by a man who had twisted a sacred ancient symbol into a mandate for global supremacy and racial hatred, began to cast a long, suffocating shadow over history. The swastika, once a beacon of harmony in the American Southwest, was rapidly being hijacked by the Nazi Party. The soldiers of the 45th Infantry Division watched with growing discomfort as the emblem they wore, a symbol that spoke of the sun in the harmony of nature, was being repurposed as a vessel of intolerance and industrial-scale murder. The atmosphere in the barracks changed. Civilians who didn't know the history of the 45th began to look at these American soldiers with suspicion, whispering about their allegiances. The irony was agonizing. Men who would soon be tasked with dismantling the very regime that promoted this twisted ideology were being tarnished by the visual association. In the theater of global politics, the original meaning of their emblem had been eclipsed by a monstrous new reality. They were no longer just soldiers. They were becoming prisoners of a visual branding catastrophe that they had not created. By 1939, the brass of the 45th knew that a change was inevitable. The association had become untenable. A competition was launched within the division to find a new symbol that would maintain the division's deep connection to its indigenous roots while severing all ties to the toxic iconography of the European fascists. Hundreds of designs were submitted, but one stood out. Not just as a piece of art, but as a legendary guardian of the skies. It was the Thunderbird. In Native American mythology, the Thunderbird was a powerful, supernatural being, a bringer of rain and storms, and a protector of the people. It was a perfect evolution. It maintained the division's commitment to the heritage of the American Southwest while pivoting to a symbol of strength, defense, and righteous power. The transition was swift. The old shoulder patches were stripped away, and in their place, the golden, outstretched wings of the Thunderbird appeared. This change was not just a bureaucratic mandate, it was a psychological reclaiming of the division's identity. The soldiers felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer wearing a symbol that invited confusion. They were now emblazoned with a guardian that symbolized their impending role as liberators. The 45th Infantry Division would go on to carry the Thunderbird into the heart of the most brutal conflicts of the Second World War. From the craggy beaches of Sicily to the freezing, desperate forests of France, and eventually into the terrifying reality of the concentration camps themselves, the men of the Thunderbird fought with a ferocity that lived up to their new name. When they finally encountered the horrors of the camps, their resolve solidified. They were the direct antagonists to the ideology that had once threatened to ruin their reputation. The Thunderbird became a symbol of hope for the oppressed and a nightmare for the crumbling Wehrmacht. Through their actions, the soldiers of the 45th transformed their unit's identity from a regional militia into one of the most decorated and respected combat forces in the United States Army. The controversy of the swastika faded into the footnotes of history, replaced by the indomitable legend of the Thunderbird. Today, the patch serves as a reminder of how symbols can be co-opted, how history is often misunderstood, and how a group of people can define their own narrative even when the world tries to impose a false one upon them. The Thunderbird remains an enduring testament to the 45th, a unit that chose to evolve rather than be defined by the shadows of its past.